There are over 20 new games in development at PlayStation Studios, including some big new IPs, and even a secret studio you've never heard of that could be working on a major project. Most of these games have not been announced yet, but many have been cooking for a while, and there's a good chance some of them will be revealed soon at a September showcase alongside the PS5 Pro. The PS5 Pro is kind of a worst-kept secret at this point. Don't let the naysayers fool you. Multiple leaks and reliable sources have pegged it for a holiday 2024 release. So we pretty much know it's coming this year. The question is just when will it be announced? To hit that holiday window, Sony has to reveal it soon to give it a bit of marketing time, which is exactly what they did with the PS4 Pro in 2016, revealing it on September 7th, just 9 weeks before its November 10th launch. So a September reveal is looking likely again. It's worth noting that Sony has hosted a PlayStation event every September since 2019, making it even more likely. Some people are saying the PS5 Pro reveal will be at the Tokyo Game Show on September 26th, and it's true Sony is registered to be there for the first time in 5 years, which is definitely noteworthy, but I think they'll want to have their own event earlier in the month. My guess is right around Astrobot launch on the 6th, and then maybe have more details or a PS5 Pro demo at the Tokyo Game Show. Also, I won't waste your time going through all of them here, but William Aguilar did a really nice job outlining a bunch more reasons why a September PlayStation event makes a ton of sense. I'll link it below if you want to check it out. But to actually get people to buy the PS5 Pro, Sony is going to have to hype it up, and there's no better way to do that than revealing new games. Even though they said they do not plan to release any new major existing franchise titles before April 2025, that doesn't mean games like Ghost of Tsushima 2, for example, can't be revealed with the PS5 Pro. Any new game could still be announced this year, and games outside the Juggernaut franchises could potentially even release this year, or at least before April. Astrobot is a perfect example of that. So let's dive into all the games that could help prop up the PS5 Pro, starting with Naughty Dog, creators of The Last of Us and Uncharted. It's pretty much a no-brainer that we'll see The Last of Us Part 3 someday, and Neil Druckmann has confirmed they have a concept for it. But we also pretty much know for a fact that it won't be the next game they release. In a statement at the end of the Grounded 2 documentary, and in his comments on a podcast interview with Logic, Neil indicated that their next game will be a brand new IP, describing it as really ambitious and parts of its development being really hard. But we pretty much know nothing about what sort of game it is. Some people have speculated fantasy or sci-fi. That really is just speculation, but I do think something different from TLU would make a lot of sense given how intensely they've focused on that franchise for a while now. Obviously, with Naughty Dog's track record, I'm super interested to see what this new IP is, but in addition to not knowing anything about it, we also don't really have a good sense for how far along it is in development. It's probably safe to assume that at least some pre-production started 4 years ago after The Last of Us Part 2 released, but we also know Naughty Dog was focused on The Last of Us Online project for a while. It seems like they spent quite a bit of time and energy on that, and with it being cancelled at the end of 2023, it's tough to say how much that detracted from the new IP. That being said, even if the new IP isn't close to release, Sony does have a history of revealing games with longer lead times around the midpoint of a console generation to give a bit of a roadmap for the back half of the generation. So I don't think it's highly likely we see this new IP in September, but I'd say there's a decent chance we get a sneak peek. Now, this might sound like a bit of a downer if you're a Last of Us fan, but keep in mind that in their statement about the online project being cancelled, they clearly stated they have more than one game in development at the moment, and I'd say one of them is very likely TLU Part 3. But one of the more likely suspects to show up at a September showcase is Sucker Punch with Ghost of Tsushima 2. It hasn't been publicly confirmed yet, but based on job listings over the past few years and the success of the first game, I think we'd all be shocked if they came out with something other than Ghost 2. The first game launched 4 years ago, and the PC port that launched a few months back seems to have been very successful. With AAA games usually taking 4 to 6 years to make these days, a Ghost of Tsushima sequel should be getting close to at least being revealed. Also, this still seems to be flying under the radar, but there's actually a Ghost of Tsushima movie being made as we speak. John Wick director Chad Stahelski is at the helm and confirmed back in November that the script is done. Now, if I were Sony, I'd want to release the second game and movie around the same time. People watch the movie, they find out it's based on a video game, then they hear a second game is out that continues the story they just saw in the movie, and so they go buy the first and second games in a bundle deal. Now again, we know a big franchise title like Ghost 2 won't launch this year, but we could certainly see it revealed alongside the PS5 Pro with something like a mid-2025 release. I'm not so sure about the timing for the movie or exactly when the game would release, but I think a Ghost 2 reveal this fall is pretty likely. Another studio I think we can count on hearing from in September is Insomniac. Those guys have been pumping out great games super consistently for almost 30 years. Like, I mean literally since 1996, there's only been 5 individual years where Insomniac hasn't released a game. That's super impressive, and it really underscores how unfortunate and unfair the hack and layoffs were earlier this year. Surely both of those things have delayed Insomniac's current projects a bit, which is probably why we haven't seen the heavily rumored Spider-Man 2 DLC or Venom game yet. Now, they have confirmed a few times through responses on Twitter that they're heads down on Wolverine, and I think a lot of people are still under the impression that we're going to get Wolverine like next year. But we know from the leaked roadmap that Wolverine was supposed to be out in 2026. It is possible plans have changed and Wolverine's timeline has moved up, and I wouldn't be surprised if we got a new trailer for it at a PS5 Pro event just to keep the hype up, but I think it's more likely we'll see something about Spider-Man 2 DLC, a Venom game, or both. And if it's DLC, I think it could even drop this year. By the way, that roadmap also had Spider-Man 3 down for 2028, a new Ratchet & Clank in 2029, an X-Men game in 2030, and a brand new IP after that. So it sounds like Insomniac will still be full steam ahead despite the recent challenges. As for my Horizon fam, don't worry. Despite the layoffs they also faced this year, Guerrilla is cooking, and we'll get to that in a minute. But first, let's talk about Santa Monica, aka the God of War studio. Ragnarok launched at the end of 2022, and then we were all pleasantly surprised to get the free Valhalla DLC 1 year later. As revealed at the last PlayStation event, Ragnarok is launching on PC September 19th, and surely the team is working on whatever's next for God of War, whether that's a rumored Atreus spin-off game, remasters of the original games, or a new mainline entry in the series. In an interview, Cory Barlog said the studio is spread out on a lot of different things, so a combination of any of those is possible. But we also know a new IP is in the mix. Cory stepped back from Ragnarok to focus on this new game, so he's been working on it for at least a few years now. However, the rest of the team was likely all hands on deck for Ragnarok during most of that time, and Cory just tweeted in March that he was seeing early stuff come together on the new game. So it sounds like it's still a ways off, and I think it's safe to say the next main God of War game is also at least a couple of years out. So I'm not expecting a big reveal from Santa Monica with the PS5 Pro. Maybe we get a teaser or two for some of the projects they're working on, or maybe we get an announcement for a smaller project like remakes or an Atreus game, but I wouldn't expect anything major. There are plenty more big studios to keep in mind though, and some dark horses to keep an eye on as well. But let's blast through some easy ones first. Team Asobi is obviously working on Astrobot, set to release on September 6th. Of course, you've always got San Diego working on MLB The Show and Polyphony on Gran Turismo. Firewalk has their debut title Concord launching on August 23rd, unless it gets delayed after feedback from the open beta. Neon Koi is a relatively new member of PlayStation Studios, and they're focused on creating a mobile action shooter. We might see something on that this fall, but we don't know anything about it. Firesprite, who developed Horizon Call of the Mountain, also joined PlayStation Studios recently, but has faced some internal issues and then layoffs earlier this year, after which their Twisted Metal live service game got cancelled. Supposedly they're working on a new IP called Project Heartbreak, but I'm sure it's a long way off. Media Molecule, known for Little Big Planet and Dreams, also faced significant layoffs in 2023 alongside shutting down Dreams. We do have indications from a job posting that they're also working on a new IP, but it sounds like it's only been active for about a year, so I wouldn't expect to see anything from them for a while. Of course, Nixies will still be working on excellent PC ports of first-party titles like they have for Spider-Man, Horizon Forbidden West, and Ghost of Tsushima. I would think Spider-Man 2 is their next project for release sometime in 2025. Another support studio we don't hear much about is Valkyrie Entertainment, who have worked on games like God of War, Infamous, and Twisted Metal. They have developed their own mobile game in the past called Guns Up, and are reportedly working on a new mobile game to help Sony push into the mobile space like Neon Koi. And then we've got the Secret Studio, In 2020, Jason Blundell, who was a co-head at one of the primary Call of Duty studios, co-founded Deviation Games with Dave Anthony, another Call of Duty veteran, and they announced a PlayStation partnership in 2021, saying that they'd expand PlayStation's portfolio in a very significant way. Given their backgrounds, it's pretty likely Deviation was working on a AAA shooter, which would definitely fill a void PlayStation currently has in its lineup. However, Jason left for some reason in 2022, after which they faced major layoffs and then closed down earlier this year. But a few recent LinkedIn and Twitter posts have shown that a number of Deviation devs now work for PlayStation, and a couple indicated they're working under Jason. So it sounds like they may have reformed as a smaller team, now fully under the PlayStation banner, and I'd say there's a good chance they're continuing work on a AAA shooter. Definitely something to keep an eye on, but I don't think we'll see it revealed this year. One of the other new kids on the block is Haven, who are working on their debut title Fair Games, a competitive heist game. We haven't heard anything on Fair Games since the CG trailer announcement over a year ago, but it's been in development for over 3 years, so I think it's pretty likely to show up at a September event where we can hopefully see some actual gameplay. I'm not particularly interested in it myself, but it's worth noting Haven is Jade Raymond's studio, and she's a highly accomplished developer. She was a producer on Assassin's Creed 1 and 2, and then a director on Unity. She was also in producer and director roles on Splinter Cell Blacklist, Watch Dogs, and Far Cry, and she's helped build out multiple dev teams like Ubisoft Toronto. So yeah, she's kind of a boss, and that's why PlayStation snatched up Haven basically right after she founded it. I'm looking forward to seeing how Fair Games turns out, even if I don't get into it. One of the live service projects I am more interested in, though, is Bungie's new extraction shooter, Marathon. Of course, they'll still be continuing Destiny for the foreseeable future, but Marathon looks like it could be another big hit, at least based on the amount of interest around it. It's been over a year since we've heard anything on Marathon, and in the Vidoc, Scott Taylor did say they'd be going dark for a while, but there's been a bit of a shakeup with this game behind the scenes. Apparently, the director Christopher Barrett was replaced with Joe Ziegler, who was the previous director of Valorant, and a source inside Bungie told IGN that they've shifted away from customizable characters to instead having a set of selectable heroes. I think most people interested in Marathon, including myself, were disappointed to hear that, but I'm trying to keep an open mind about it. I think there's a decent chance we get an update on Marathon in September, in which case we should see some gameplay and hopefully get a better understanding of what's going on with the game. You may have also heard that Bungie just recently did another major round of layoffs, and it sounds like Sony is basically stepping in to play a much more active role in their leadership. And in addition to over 150 Bungie employees being absorbed by Sony, they're also spinning off a brand new PlayStation studio with about 40 Bungie employees to keep a science fantasy action game they've been working on alive. Sounds pretty interesting, but I highly doubt we'll hear anything about that game this year. Of course, I hope everyone who was let go at Bungie lands on their feet. But back on the single player front, I think there are two potential dark horses that could surprise us. Housemarque, who released Returnal in 2021, have been working on a new IP for about 3 years. And we recently learned from a job posting that it'll be an action game. In a lot of ways, Returnal was a breakout game for Housemarque, but they also have a long history of making coin-op arcade-style games like Nex Machina and Matterfall. Their new game will be the first one with Sony's full support behind them, since they're a PlayStation studio now. So it'll be really interesting to see what they come up with, and I think there's a pretty good chance we get a look at it alongside the PS5 Pro. The other potential dark horse is Bluepoint. Bluepoint has long been known for high-quality remasters and remakes, like Demon's Souls, Shadow of the Colossus, and the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection. They've also helped support a number of other games with ports and additional capacity, like God of War Ragnarok and Titanfall. But now they're determined to develop their own new IP, and despite being categorized as a partner studio in Sony's corporate meeting this year, Peter Dalton, Bluepoint's head of tech, reaffirmed on Twitter that they are indeed still working on an original title. It's been over 4 years since the Demon's Souls remake release, so we could definitely see Bluepoint's new project soon. I kind of take the second part of Peter's reply where he mentions the team sharpening their skills as an indication that they need more time before the game is ready. But a reveal could definitely happen this fall with a release in 2025 or maybe 2026. The only bit of info we have on this game comes from the Insomniac leak, where there appears to be 2 pieces of concept art depicting an interesting fantasy setting. But these images could be totally outdated, so definitely don't peg too much on them. Hopefully we see something official in September. I also feel like I can't mention Bluepoint without bringing up the potential for a Bloodborne remaster or remake, since they'd be a highly likely candidate to handle it. I know people are getting pretty tired of getting their hopes up for a Bloodborne something, but there is a bit of actual evidence for it at the moment. Back when Bloodborne launched, Future Press made a guidebook for the game, like they do for lots of games, but it's been out of print for a while. However, if you go to the Future Press website right now, you can find a new version available to pre-order, and it says it delivers on September 30th. Now, call it hopium or copium or whatever, but I feel like you wouldn't bring a book like this back into print unless there was going to be a game release to drive sales. Plus, the timing of a September 30th release seems to line up a little too well with the heavily rumored timing of the PS5 Pro reveal. Also, keep in mind that the Demon's Souls remake released as a launch title for the PS5, so a Bloodborne remake launching with the PS5 Pro would be reusing the same strategy. So it might be a stretch, but I think it could actually make a lot of sense for a Bloodborne remaster or remake to launch with the PS5 Pro. And just imagine how much hype that would generate. Now, there's no solid evidence Bluepoint is working on that, or if they'd even be the studio to do it, but they're kind of the obvious choice since they handled the Demon's Souls remake. Hopefully we find out one way or the other in just a few weeks. But one of the more likely games to be revealed with the PS5 Pro is Bend Studios' new IP. Since releasing Days Gone in 2019, Bend has been pretty quiet, but we know they've been working on a multiplayer open-world survival game for at least 5 years now. The game is said to use some systems from Days Gone, but it won't be a Days Gone spin-off or set in the Days Gone universe. A couple months ago, Jeff Ross, the director on Days Gone who has since left the studio, replied to someone on Twitter saying that Sony had spent over $250 million on the new game. Now, I don't think he'd just make that up, but I'd also take it with a grain of salt. I'm not clear on what happened with Ross leaving Bend, but he seems pretty salty about Sony not wanting to do a Days Gone sequel. And if he's no longer with the studio, I'm not sure how he could reliably quote a number like that. But either way, Bend's new game has been cooking for a long time, and I think it's highly likely to show up in September. In addition to PlayStation Studios, there's also a bunch of other games we could see revealed or get updates on at a September showcase. I think the most likely third-party reveal would be the Hogwarts Legacy Director's Cut. Jason Schreier, who's one of the most reputable industry journalists out there, reported a couple of months ago that Rocksteady is providing support on the director's cut of Hogwarts Legacy after Suicide Squad's big flop. So while there's been no official announcement, the Hogwarts Legacy director's cut is basically confirmed, and I think a reveal at a PlayStation event would make a lot of sense. PlayStation kicked in some money to Hogwarts Legacy's development to get the exclusive Haunted Hogsmeade quest, so the marketing connection between Legacy and PlayStation is already there, and I could see a holiday release making sense. So September is about as late as you'd want to wait to announce it. As for updates on already announced third-party games, I think we could see additional trailers for Death Stranding 2, Monster Hunter Wilds, Dragon Age The Veilguard, and Assassin's Creed Shadows. Probably not all of those, of course, but I think any of those are fair game. We'll also probably get a new trailer for Silent Hill 2, since that's coming out in October, and the Until Dawn remake, which is still slated for release this year. There are also a bunch of games being developed under the PlayStation China Hero project that should be getting close to reveals as well. I think Lost Soul aside, Convallaria and AI Limit are the ones we've seen a bit of before, but there's at least 8 more under development, so those could add some surprise announcements to a showcase event. The PS5 Pro is also going to be the way to play GTA 6. The game isn't launching on PC until later, and Xbox seems to be skipping the mid-gen console upgrade this go-around, so the PS5 Pro will be the obvious choice if you want the best experience playing GTA 6. If there's a single game out there that will move PS5 Pro units, it's GTA 6. So I would bet Sony's eager to give it as much attention as possible. But of course, the studio I'm most excited to hear from is Guerrilla. The Horizon multiplayer online project has been my most anticipated game for a long time. And yes, Horizon multiplayer is definitely real, and I think it's actually one of the more likely games to show up at the PS5 Pro reveal. But I actually think we could see more from Guerrilla in September. Alongside a pretty much guaranteed update on LEGO Horizon before its holiday release, there's also been a few reports of a Horizon Zero Dawn remaster. Of course, even going on 8 years old, Zero Dawn still looks very good, but there's no doubt Forbidden West was a big step step up graphically, and if the Zero Dawn remaster is real, it would make a lot of sense to use it to showcase the PS5 Pro's new features, like significantly improved ray tracing and higher quality upscaling. Sony loves using Horizon as a poster child franchise, and Forbidden West is definitely one of the most graphically impressive games out there, so I could definitely see this happening. Of course, as a huge Horizon fan, I'd also love to see something on Horizon 3, but as much as it pains me to say it, I don't think that's realistic. There were 5 years between Zero Dawn's 2017 release and Forbidden West in 2022, so apply that to Horizon 3 and you're looking at 2027 at the earliest, though I think 2028 or so is more likely, maybe as a PS6 launch title. But that doesn't mean we'll be going another 3 or 4 years without a substantial Horizon game. Guerrilla has been working on the online project for over 6.5 years, and despite the layoffs earlier this year, Jason Schreier confirmed that the project is not cancelled. Now, based on some new info I dug up recently, it's pretty clear a good chunk of that 6.5 years was spent on early pre-production work, while most of the team was focused on Forbidden West. But since Guerrilla tweeted about the online project in December 2022, I've been keeping an eye on their jobs page, and they've been hiring like crazy for this game. Plus, it seems like pretty much the entire team has been focused on it since wrapping Forbidden West. Those job listings actually tell us more than you'd think about the online project, and I'm putting all that together in a video for you that I'll link right here when it's ready. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you over there in just a second.